There's a lot of punches in wrestling, but one punch in particular has stayed with us for over 20 years. It was a punch from an 8-foot fiberglass clenched hand. Place your thumb over your index finger like so with me now as we smash through the nostalgic glass and reflect on WWE's presentation magnum opus, the SmackDown Fist. In August of 2001, WWE celebrated its second anniversary of SmackDown, or its cotton anniversary, if you're a married couple. Now, unlike most married couples, WWE remembered its anniversary and gave its non-Monday show a bit of a makeover. You see, since SmackDown's inception, we had that spaceship-like entranceway with the blue spiderweb behind it, punctuated by an egg-shaped video screen. It served us well, but it was time to eclipse the ellipses and give the Ovaltron some Ovaltine and send it to bed for good. Its final fling was August the 9th, 2001, and it went out not with a bang or a whimper, but a gore! 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 Rhino sent then rival Chris Jericho hurtling through the stage with his extreme spear just before the end of that week's show. So the final few segments took place with a big old hole where some of the stage should have been. Sadly, they missed the opportunity to go full Looney Tunes on us and have a hole at the back of the arena in the shape of Rhino and or Chris Jericho, which would have been very funny, presumably then being blown up by some Acme dynamite. It was revealed that the season premiere, as a result of this destruction by Rhino, would go live on UPN with a brand new look. Let's touch on that live bit, shall we? As opposed to the usual 2-tape delay, this was going to be a way of hopefully stopping people frolicking in the dirt sheets and getting all the spoilers ahead of time. Because we're at a time in 2001 where WWF taped SmackDown on a Tuesday. We're also at a time in 2001 where WWF sets are rather creative. The backlash hooks are swinging with reckless abandon. We had that giant electric chair above King of the Ring, complete with Shane McMahon-proof glass windows. And all the other shows had video walls of all shapes and sizes. This is just a smattering of what WWF was scattering around the country at that time. The following week was all changed for the Blue Brand, though, when the show rolled into Salt Lake City, Utah. It was a live episode of SmackDown. And also another reason why they went live, not just to keep away the dirt sheets, but usually live shows get higher ratings than taped ones. Not all the time, but most of the time. So with this being a season premiere and a new look, the lads and lasses at Titan wanted to put their best foot forward with a live show. While SmackDown didn't lose the blue hue in their new look, it gained some new nodes, including the theme song, The Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson. That was the one that was very briefly used in the late 90s for Monday Night Raw. As we are midway through the invasion angle, we had WCW/ECW alliance stars like Tori Wilson, Booker T and Rob Van Dam now in the opening package alongside WWF stars like The Rock and Steve Austin. Also, Rhino pops up in there. The man that destroyed the set that we knew and loved in the first place, the Monster. SmackDown had a silver metallic finish to it now. Also, they now used a new font, which I've done so much digging on this. According to arguably too much company time spent on font search engines by this guy, is called Brock Bold in italics, which is ironic, as Brock Bold would be used less than a year before Brock Lesnar would debut. It's like they knew all along and they were trying to warn us through typefaces. SmackDown opens with fireworks exploding around the ceiling, leading all the way like lit gunpowder to the new stage setup, which was unveiled in a shower of pyro. This new arrangement looks huge on standard definition television, with huge shards of broken glass surrounding a big silver walkway on either side. Titantrons all jagged around the edges like holes had been punched through the walls so we could see them. And speaking of punching, above said walkway and around all that said glass is the piece de resistance, the centerpiece, a whopping great hand clenched into a fist, bursting through and seemingly hurtling towards us viewers at home. The SmackDown Fist is upon us, and it is an impressive sight to see. The stage design symbolized the in-your-face action that SmackDown offered, illustrated very subtly by a whopping great fist smashing through the glass, like you were getting a punch in the face through your telly every week. That's what it was meant to symbolize. Whose fist is that? We don't quite know. Well, if you believe Paul White, aka The Big Show, it's his fist that is modelled on his very own hand. He spent a few years in interviews telling people that this was the case. He claimed it was based on a promo shot with him punching forward. However, the promo shot was taken in 2004, which was 3 years after the SmackDown Fist debuted. Unless our boy Show has a time machine, I think he's telling porky pies there. Now, some say the fist is actually based on the logo of the Chicago Enforcers, which is itself a big old silver and blue fist flying through the air. Very good argument. This extraordinary undertaking, this whopping great hand, was undertaken by B&R Scenery, who have been setting the scene with spectacular stages since the 80s in Camarillo, California. They've worked for a who's who in the music world, people like Van Halen, Michael Jackson, Justin Timberlake, Eminem, to name a few. They've been part of some cultural milestones as well, like the Grammy Awards and the Super Bowl halftime shows. They were responsible for a whole bunch of WWE set pieces over the years as well, including our friends today, the iconic Fist of the Blue brand. Do you want some numbers on the SmackDown Fist? Yeah, of course you do. The SmackDown Fist is 8 feet high, 12 feet wide, and 17 feet long. It's about 1 1/4 Omos's up, just under 2 Great Khali's wide, and about 2.5 Big Shows across. It weighs over 6,000 pounds, which is about 11 King Mabels and a Mo on top of that as well. How is it made? It's carved out of styrofoam, lightweight, easy to shape, doesn't absorb moisture from the air. It's pretty rotten for the environment, though. It's non-biodegradable. Sorry about that. Please avoid flushing your SmackDown fists down the toilet. Thank you for coming to this Tom Campbell TED Talk. I appreciate you. So it was a styrofoam-shaped fist that was then blasted with fiberglass. It's usually done to maintain the hulls of boats. And once it was set, the fist was then completely hollowed out and reinforced with steel rigging on the inside in order to keep it together. The fist itself is then split into 3 parts that they click together like big fat Lego. The index and the middle fingers in one part, the ring finger and the pinkies in another, and the thumb is the final part. Transporting it as a complete fist would have just been cumbersome and far trickier to take across the country, to be honest with you. It was still a chew on, mind you, getting the fist from place to place. It had its own designated truck that went from city to city, along with the rest of the WWF staging convoy. It'd be an amazing thing to be stopped at customs for. What you got in the back? Oh, it's a big fist, Your Honour. Once the fist got to the venue, it'll be put back together with one of the crew members who were assembling the stage actually having to climb inside the fist and bolt the parts together. And then from here, cables were tied to the fist because this fist, filled with steel rigging, is so heavy that if the SmackDown stage tried to bear its weight, it would simply collapse, the same way that YouTubers silently collapse under the crushing weight of inadequacy. Yes, Dad, this is a proper job. So the fist would essentially dangle down from the ceiling and be held in place on the stage, but without the stage holding it, if you see what I mean. All of a sudden, cutting a promo on SmackDown in the early noughties is terrifying, knowing that you find yourself cutting a promo underneath a 3-ton fist being held up by cables and optimism every night. The glass pieces that complement the whole being punched through your telly motif, also too heavy for the stage, so they're held up by cables painstakingly fitted to the ceiling and painstakingly put together like an ambitious jigsaw puzzle over 300 times during SmackDown's lifetime. The result was this awe-inspiring arrangement that was very much considered the coolest looking stage in wrestling of the day, and to many, i.e. me, at a title that it still holds now. The people at THQ attempted to will more from the SmackDown Fist interaction into existence via the video games. Starting with SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, players could fight on top of the fist. Deeply satisfying when you time it just right and you can have The Undertaker choke slam somebody all the way to the ground. But more often than not, when you're playing it, you'd just fall off, and then you and your opponents would just both sustain damage, and you'd all look quite silly in the process. It nearly came to pass in real life that we could start using the SmackDown Fist more interactively on real telly, as WWE did have a shocking moment in place for the knuckles above the buckles. Zach Gowen revealed in an interview with Chris Van Vliet that there were plans for him to be F5'd by Brock Lesnar off the SmackDown Fist and through the flipping stage. Now, in the end, the writers couldn't figure out a proper storyline way to get Gowen and Brock on top of the fist to begin with. So the angle was changed to what we saw, which was Brock throwing Gowen in a wheelchair down a flight of stairs. Still painful, but probably not as painful as being thrown off a big floating hand. The nature of the fist being hung from the arena ceiling, being impossible to reach without a comedy ladder or a leap in logic, plus with it being so heavy that even without wrestlers dangling off it, it meant it was somewhat dangerous. It resulted that we couldn't really interact with it very much during SmackDown tapings. There were a few memorable moments around the Blue brand's new hand, like when Heidenreich ascended the fist to read poetry back in 2004 for reasons, I guess. The end of the SmackDown Fist came with another big impact flying headlong towards our screens, and that was the advent of high definition. Whilst high def has been, of course, knocking around for a while in different ways in different places, what we know as modern day HD TV was taking over by the mid-noughties, and on January 14th, 2008, WWE put out a press release announcing that their weekly slam-scented soap opera was making the HD high jump. For a cool $20 million, WWE upgraded their entire operation for high-definition broadcast. They worked with a top-level production house as well on state-of-the-art production trucks, and they had a custom transmission vehicle that was designed to broadcast all the shows and all the pay-per-views in shiny HD as well. With this, WWE also had to look at their current Raw and SmackDown production setups. Now, our favourites, Big Fist, whilst it's the coolest thing in standard definition, would have looked dated and a little bit sad and a little bit janky with all the cables and stuff hanging off it with new high-def cameras set up, unless they gave it a big expensive overhaul. So on January 15th, 2008, the Fist came down for the final time after a joint SmackDown ECW taping in Birmingham, Alabama. WWE saw this as an opportunity to give all their shows a brand new LED-heavy future-proof setup that many could use in a multitude of ways. It led to Raw, SmackDown, ECW at the time, pay-per-views as well, adopting this universal stage where the colours and themes could be altered at the touch of a button. Of course, in high definition, this looks magnificent, like the WWE superstars were bursting off and out of the screen. However, the biggest complaint was that the characterful, curated and crafted arenas were now a thing of the past. For WWE, high definition came with low imagination, and the Fist was down for good, and the Fist will always be missed. It made a welcome cameo during WrestleMania 36, though, in the Firefly Funhouse match, pitting John Cena against Bray Wyatt. The Fist was demothballed to be part of a sequence that saw John Cena reenact his WWE debut. When placed on the ground the way that it was, it gives you a real vibe for just how bloody massive this thing was. Cena standing next to it looked like the final boss battle in Super Smash Bros. On the N64. The Fist also reappeared, sort of, a year later during what was billed as a throwback edition of SmackDown, WWE's semi-regular wrestling retrofit. When retro editions of Raw have come around, we've seen classic stars, we've seen classic sets, and in some cases, classic locations brought back to receive a metaphorical warm embrace once more. So when it was announced that we're getting a classic SmackDown review, if you will, there was so much talk of getting a Big Fist that you could have easily crammed 37 big ones right into it all that was deleted for taste and decency reasons. When the throwback was thrown up, we all threw up. WWE had been experimenting with augmented reality CGI effects, the period that gave us the computer-generated pancakes and unicorns, stock graphic pigeons that flew out of Matt Riddle's flip-flops, and the horrifying 20-foot food fight edition of Roman Reigns. In an attempt to appease the fans of the naughty SmackDown staging, WWE's computer graphics department, which presumably at the time, based on how it looked, was a broom cupboard housing 6 rats and a copy of Microsoft 3D Movie Maker, gave us an augmented SmackDown Fist. The entire show was a washout, a hodgepodge of retro wrestling tropes and soulless graphical redesigns. But the CGI SmackDown Fist, in this Fist fanatic's opinion, was downright embarrassing. Plus the juxtaposition of the fist and the golden era WWE logo, oh God, brought me out in a rash. We never stopped hoping for the day that we fly the fist once more. So much so that multiple social media accounts have attempted to start movements to get WWE to bring the SmackDown Fist back. Big shout to @FistCountdown on Twitter, who for over 1,200 days has been asking Paul Levesque for a fisting. So far, those requests have been unfulfilled, but hope does spring eternal. Some have even just flat out faked news articles about the SmackDown Fist making a triumphant comeback. And I think it speaks to how we, as old school fans, dine out on confirmation bias in our doom scrolling dinners. Sure, the source is one I've never heard of, and true, I could take 20 seconds to fact check it, or 9 seconds to read the Twitter community notes, but I'm sorry, Bolo Bacoa on Twitter has tweeted with the words breaking and a fire emoji that WWE are bringing back the SmackDown Fist. And damn it, I just want to believe that there is some good left in this awful, hate-filled husk of a rock that is slowly hurtling through space that we call Earth. It's a fake account, I wouldn't worry. Apart from popping up in several WWE warehouse videos with Joey Styles and WWE archivist Ben, dear God, please stop asking me about the SmackDown Fist Brown, we haven't seen our beloved clench in its rightful place. And it seems unlikely we ever will. WWE are partial to more streamlined staging in this new era, especially when it means they can pack in more fans in that way. Over 20 years since it first punched through our screens, it has left a bruise on our nostalgic hearts. Then, now, and forever, we give a kiss to the SmackDown Fist. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.